Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky was, without a shadow of a doubt, one of Russia's most brilliant composers. You might not know his name, but you most certainly know his music. It's the sort of music that grabs you by the heartstrings and doesn't let go. Think of the soaring, dramatic melodies of the 1812 Overture, complete with its famous cannon fire, or perhaps the delicate, enchanting dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy from the Nutcracker, a piece that has become as much a part of Christmas as mince pies and questionable jumpers. His work is simply everywhere, a constant and beautiful presence in our cultural life. From ballet halls to film scores, his genius lay in his ability to pour raw, powerful emotion directly into his compositions. Listening to his symphonies is like reading a diary written in the most universal language of all music. He could express profound sadness, soaring joy, and heart-wrenching passion, often within the same piece. This emotional honesty is precisely why his works, like the ballets Swan Lake and Sleeping Beauty, have remained so popular for well over a century. They speak to something deep within us, a shared human experience that transcends time and place, connecting us directly to the mind of this extraordinary man. Born in 1840, Tchaikovsky showed a prodigious talent for music from a very young age. Despite this, he was initially trained for a career in the civil service, a far more sensible and stable path in 19th century Russia. But the pull of music was too strong to resist. He eventually abandoned his government post to study at the newly founded St. Petersburg Conservatory. It was a brave move, but one that would ultimately gift the world some of its most cherished and enduring musical treasures. His dedication paid off, and he soon became a towering figure in the world of classical music. His final masterpiece, the Symphony No. 6, known as the Pathétique, is perhaps his most personal and profound work. Premiering just 9 days before his death, it is a symphony steeped in melancholy and a sense of tragic finality. The music rises and falls with an almost overwhelming intensity, taking the listener on a journey through despair, brief moments of light, and ultimately a quiet, fading resignation. Many have heard this powerful music and wondered if the composer was trying to tell us something, perhaps writing his own musical farewell to the world. To truly understand the story of Tchaikovsky's life and death, we must look at the world he inhabited. Imperial Russia in the 19th century was a place of immense contradictions. It was a land of glittering palaces and breathtaking art, but it was also governed by a rigid and deeply conservative social code. The Tsar held absolute power, and the Russian Orthodox Church wielded enormous influence over public morality. Conformity was not just expected, it was enforced. Stepping outside of these strict societal norms could lead to severe consequences, from social ostracism to legal punishment. For Tchaikovsky, this presented a lifelong, deeply personal struggle. It is now widely accepted by historians and biographers that he was gay. In an era when many parts of the world were beginning to grapple with new ideas, Russia remained staunchly intolerant. Homosexuality was explicitly illegal under the Russian Imperial Criminal Code. It was considered a sin, a crime, and a source of great shame. This forced Tchaikovsky to live a life shrouded in secrecy, constantly fearing exposure that could ruin his career and his reputation, and even lead to his arrest and exile. This constant need for concealment caused him immense mental and emotional distress. His personal letters and diaries are filled with passages that reveal his profound loneliness and his struggle to reconcile his identity with the expectations of the society he lived in. He even entered into a disastrous and short-lived marriage in 1877, a desperate attempt to create a veneer of conventionality. The marriage collapsed within weeks and pushed him to the brink of a nervous breakdown, highlighting the immense pressure he was under to appear normal in the eyes of the world. This backdrop of fear and repression is crucial to understanding the theories that would later surround his death. The fact that he was a gay man in a homophobic society became a central element in the mystery. People began to wonder if the weight of this secret had finally become too much to bear. It's a sad reality that the very society that celebrated his musical genius was also the one that caused him such profound personal torment, forcing one of its greatest artists to live in the shadows. For many years, the official story of Tchaikovsky's death was accepted without much question. On November 6, 1893, at the age of 53, he died in St. Petersburg. The cause of death was listed as cholera, a disease that was indeed rampant in the city at the time. Cholera is a dreadful illness spread through contaminated water, and it was a common and feared killer in the 19th century. On the surface, it seemed a plausible, if tragic, end for the great composer. But as time went on, certain details just didn't seem to add up for some people. The main theory that began to emerge decades after his death was that Tchaikovsky had not died of cholera at all, but had committed suicide. The story went that he had been forced to take his own life to avoid a public scandal. Proponents of this theory, most notably the musicologist Alexandra Orlova, suggested that a court of honor made up of his former schoolmates had confronted him about his sexuality. To prevent his shameful secret from being revealed to the Tsar, they supposedly ordered him to take poison, staging his death to look like cholera. This suicide narrative gained a lot of traction, partly because it seemed to fit with the composer's troubled life and the tragic nature of his final symphony. The Pathétique was so full of despair that it was easy for people to interpret it as a kind of musical suicide note, a final public outpouring of his private anguish. The idea of a tortured genius hounded to his death by a cruel society is a powerful and romantic one. It created a compelling story that captured the public imagination for much of the 20th century. Furthermore, some of his contemporaries had expressed confusion about the circumstances of his death. The composer Rimsky-Korsakov, for example, noted his surprise that Tchaikovsky's funeral was open casket. He found it odd that mourners were allowed to kiss the body, something that would have been incredibly dangerous if he had truly died of a highly contagious disease like cholera. These inconsistencies and the tantalizing idea of a hidden conspiracy kept the suicide theory alive and well, turning Tchaikovsky's death into one of classical music's most enduring and debated mysteries. In recent years, however, the tide of scholarly opinion has turned quite decisively against the suicide theory. While the story of a secret court and forced poisoning makes for a dramatic tale, modern researchers have pointed out one rather significant problem. There is absolutely no concrete evidence to support it. The entire narrative is built on hearsay and speculation passed down through several people decades after the event. There are no letters, no official documents, and no first-hand accounts from the time that confirm such a court of honor ever took place. More recent and thorough investigations have systematically dismantled the foundations of the suicide myth. For instance, the renowned Princeton professor Simon Morrison, in his authoritative 2023 biography of the composer, argues convincingly that Tchaikovsky most likely did die of cholera, just as the official records state. Morrison and others point out that the inconsistencies surrounding the funeral aren't as strange as they first appear. Medical practices and public health measures in 19th century Russia were often inconsistent, and rules were not always strictly followed, especially for a figure as famous and beloved as Tchaikovsky. The idea that the Pathétique symphony was a suicide note has also been largely dismissed by modern experts. We know from Tchaikovsky's own letters that he began composing it almost a year before he died. Far from being a goodbye to the world, he was immensely proud of the work, describing it to his publisher as the best thing I ever composed or shall compose. He was full of plans for the future and was enjoying a period of great professional success right up until his sudden illness, which makes the idea of a planned suicide seem far less likely. So, what do most experts believe today? The overwhelming consensus among leading biographers and musicologists is that Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky died of cholera, contracted by drinking unboiled water, a tragically common occurrence in St. Petersburg at the time. While the pressures he faced as a gay man in a repressive society undoubtedly caused him great suffering throughout his life, they did not, in the end, lead him to suicide. The story of his death is less a dark conspiracy and more a simple, sad tale of a brilliant life cut short by disease.